My name is Ed Accura, and I'm the producer of the short film documentary, A Film Called Blacks Can't Swim. The aim of the film is to understand why a disproportionate amount of black people and ethnic minorities can't and don't swim. On my journey to find the truth, I have the pleasure of speaking with a very influential person. He is Google's head of broadcast and entertainment for UK and Ireland and made it to the Financial Times top 100 most influential leaders in UK tech. Justin Gupta, welcome to In the Deep End with Ed Accura.
Hi Ed, good to be here.
Good, it's good to have you here. So, can you swim?
I can swim. I'm not a particularly good swimmer, but as a child, my mother tried to get me in the pool, and I was always very sensitive to the chlorine in the pool. So when I was very young, I would always feign illness to try and avoid being in the pool. So as a result, as I got a bit older, my father was given the task of making sure that I could learn to swim, and he took me to lessons. And I guess I was round about 10 or 11 when I finally had the test to do my 100 metres. And I was a very slow swimmer, I'm not a very efficient swimmer, and it took me so long to do my 100 metres that the rest of the lesson had ended. They were closing the pool, they were turning the lights off. Never quite made it. I think I dropped out 3 metres before the end at 97 metres. The instructor gave me the certificate anyway. I think he felt sorry for me. I think he also wanted to see the back of me, to be honest. And I remember we didn't discuss it. I got out of the pool. My dad and myself went home. We put the certificate on the kitchen table to show my mum, and we never spoke of it again. And that was really the last serious swimming I did. I still swim a little bit on holidays, but only a few metres here and there.
So, but if you were in a situation whereby your life depended on it, you'd be able to do something.
I think I could swim a short distance if my life depended on it, maybe 100 metres, or 97, I guess, is my lifetime record. But I'm not a very confident swimmer. I've never really liked being in the water, and I think it comes down to the fact that I've always had very sensitive eyes in the pool. These days, I think the chlorine that we had in the 80s is not as bad in the pools in modern times. But still, I think I've learned that swimming is not for me, and it's hard to change that perception. My kids swim, and my kids swim well. My wife swims for miles.
If you were on that boat that capsized in Tanzania, Lake Victoria last year, the ferry, where 200, I think up to about 200 people drowned, you would have survived because 50 meters away from the port, and 200 people still drowned. So the message I'm trying to put out there is you can swim. It's good to swim for recreational purposes. It's good to swim for health reasons. But the number one reason is that it's a lifesaver. It's a life-saving skill. And it's taken me up to now to realize that. If you watch the film, you can see that I spent most of my life hiding behind the stereotypes, the stigmas, the myths. And it's only taken me God knows how many years to just realize that this is something I need to do, and hence the reason why I'm swimming. So yeah, so good on you. At least you can swim.
I would like to be a better swimmer. I've considered taking like a week off work for an intensive swimming course.
That should be your target for 2020. Do you see a difference in attitude in swimming between your ethnic friends and your white friends?
I think it's some and some. So I grew up in Norfolk, and my father is Indian and my mother is German. So actually, when I was growing up as a kid, there weren't that many ethnic minorities around. I had this kind of sensitive skin and sensitive eyes, and always had that. And I think it came from my dad. He has hay fever, like me. So in my case, it was my sensitive eyes. Then it just makes people that little less likely to take that step.
As you could tell by the film, I spoke to a lot of my black and ethnic minority friends, and many of them, majority, I'd probably say about 70 to 80% of them don't swim. And the main reason that they gave was that because it was never a priority it was never a priority when they were growing up. We get to understand the disadvantages of not being able to swim. So I'm just trying to get the message out there and try and get as many people as possible to swim. What's your view on the low level of participation of BAME in aquatic sports? And what can be done to encourage, or shall I say, inspire more inclusion and support and awareness of diverse opportunities aquatics offer? So, what can we do to encourage more people?
I think it's a great point, and I'm utterly convinced there's no genuine barrier to BAME people being excellent swimmers. I know that we've had black Olympic swimmers doing very well. Fewer than the kind of average representations of BAME in the various communities, but there's no physical barrier, and I think you have the evidence there as well. I think swimming has to be fun. It's not just about the barriers which provide the stick to stop people getting in the pool in the first place. I think there needs to be something to entice people that swimming is an exciting thing to do. It's a fun thing to be able to do if you go on a holiday. It's a great way to exercise, and I'm thinking like triathlons and so forth. And I think those kinds of activities will make swimming more fun and more accessible for everybody, because ultimately that's what's going to drive people into the pool. You've got the barriers that drive people away from the pool, and there's obviously tactics to apply to that, but you actually have to drive people into the pool as well. And having role models that are successful is certainly one way, but I think if it becomes culturally something that people aspire to do, that everyone is doing, because in many areas, as an English person in our society, there's very few areas that are that segregated between black and white. This is just one of those areas where it seems to be there's still a gap, certainly in a kind of social interaction or social adoption.
Yeah, very true. Very well said. We've got a job to do, but I think we're getting closer. Probably might not be in our generation, but in our children's generation, there will definitely be a huge difference. People will be looking back and listen to what we are talking about right now and say, what the hell are they talking about? And that's what I'm looking forward to. Make a change, because I seriously think that this is the beginning of the end of the issue with the disproportionate amount of blacks and ethnic minorities swimming.
I think it starts with the parents of the next generation, which is us. So if we're encouraging our kids to swim, even if we don't swim ourselves, then the problem goes away to some extent. My kids are all great swimmers.
Good. And my daughter as well. She's 9 years old and she's pretty good. So, it's with the parents, like you said. Still on the media. From a cultural diversity point of view, it's clear that black and ethnic minorities are less likely to swim and more likely to drown. Is there any amount of responsibility that should be taken by the media?
It's tough because we are an island in the UK, and it's still the case that for many people the only opportunity that they'll get to swim is if they go on holiday. Like in a day-to-day basis, swimming is not required. And obviously, if you're in a life-saving situation where you do find yourself in the water, it's incredibly beneficial if you can swim. But for many people, I just don't think it's a priority. And I think this is where the parents come in. And if your parents are prioritising other things, then it will just be a skills gap.
So it's one of those things that you have to, like you said, it has to be seen as a priority.
I wonder how much of a barrier different swimming practices within different schools is. So, for example, my kids' school, they do swimming for one term of the year, so 1/3 of the year, each of my kids go swimming for 1 hour a week. So, what's that like? I guess, 20 hours of swimming or something. It's significant, but I understand not all schools do that. I don't think it's necessarily part of the national curriculum, and that's another way that you can try and drive drive a change is by, making sure that you level the playing field so that everybody gets the same base level. It won't change the aspirational piece, it won't make it fun, but it might save a few people's lives.
Talking about schools, because we're currently partnering with Swim England to drive it within schools. It actually is in the curriculum. And it's in the curriculum that every child should be able to swim by the time they leave in year 6. And basically, the criteria is they have to be able to swim 25 meters. They have to be able to perform 2 strokes, a front crawl, breaststrokes, whatever, but 2 strokes. And they have to be able to get themselves out of a sticky situation. So basically, they should be able to perform a life-saving skill. But the statistics says that only 75% of children achieve this. But wait for this, Justin. When it goes down to the deprived areas, it goes down from 75% to 42%. So only 42% of children in the deprived areas are able to achieve any of these before they leave school.
And look, that's where you can have the biggest impact here, is helping to make swimming accessible and fun for those people, is where it's not aspirational, where their parents aren't driving it, where the kind of the limited support that the government are giving isn't enough. And I think it's just a case of making sure that it becomes aspirational in that area, and then you can get that number up to 75, that's your baseline. Obviously it would be great to get that number up to 100 in all areas, but that seems to be the biggest gap there where you can have the biggest impact.
Yep, definitely, and we're working on it. So watch this space. There's going to be a lot of things happening in 2020. Racism in sports. So I did a little research on Google, and I went to Wikipedia and to check out racism in sports. And this is what it says. Racism in sports has been a prevalent issue throughout the world. And in particular, racism towards African Americans has been especially bad over the course of history of sports in the United States and around the world. Do you think this is a reflection of the society we're living in today?
Well, these are big questions there. So look, I think if you go to its deepest level, the problem is bias. Whether it's racism or whether it's unconscious bias, the problem is bias. Either people making assumptions about the capabilities of others based on some attribute, their race, gender, sexuality or whatever, and then furthermore, people making their own determinations that they have a limitation due to their own background, which is, I think, a theme that you've covered a lot in your film. So there's 2 ways, there's 2 problems to solve, and it comes down to education at both sides. So on the one side, if you have a group of people that are underestimating the capability of another group, then you have to provide the examples. You have to show, look, here is a great black footballer, or here is a great female horse rider, or whatever it is. And then to be authentic, you need to show the science, to show that there is no such thing as being big bones means you can't swim, or whatever it is. So you need to educate people. And I think as people learn that we are ultimately one human race, there's a few differences, skin colour and a few physical differences between men and women, but in general, we all have the same things that make us able to do sports, which are 1, a body, and 2, a brain. And that's what makes us human. So that kind of addresses the education people, and will people be openly or openly racist or not racist is a factor of society, and not something I think we can solve through the swimming initiative. But if you educate people, you will increase the chances that they will come to understand and value each other. Role models are important. And definitely for me, growing up, seeing different colours of people being successful in sports. So Daley Thompson was the one I remember as a child. Like, he was the best decathlete ever for 10 years, won every competition. He was a British black guy. I found that very inspirational. But sometimes you can't be what you can't see, and if you don't see anyone around you doing activity X, whether that's swimming or football or whatever, then you put up a barrier to yourself. And often the thing that inspires you to consider something is seeing somebody like you doing something, and it's why I think it's so important for parents to role model and parents to show what's important, what's accessible, what's possible. So a long answer, and I don't claim to have a silver bullet for racism, but I think education is the solution on both sides.
We've got a big job to do. But hey, any progress is progress. And I think we're moving in the right direction. So tell us more about this Financial Times Top 100 influential leader in UK tech. This is a great thing, and I would just like to hear more about it.
Thanks, Ed. So I've been doing a lot of work over the past few years on diversity and inclusion initiatives, both within Google and within the wider broadcast industry, which is the business vertical I work in. And we started off a few years ago. We were looking to improve the gender balance within our tech team, and what we discovered is we were losing, so we were not managing to continue the gender balance of technical graduates leaving university into hiring at Google. So at some point, the balance of talent was even less balanced when we actually hired people into Google than leaving university. So we knew there was a gap, and we looked into what we could do to improve the balance. And the goal here was not to be the United Colours of Benetton and get 50% of every gender. The goal here was to make sure we were better representing our user community. Half of our users are women, and we want to make sure that we have a balance within our tech team to ensure that we are building for all people, men, women, and obviously other groups as well. And if you're hiring in the UK, the best approach to take to trying to improve your balance in any aspect is you make sure you have a more diverse hiring pipeline. So when you open a new role, we would actively go out and solicit more female candidates, and then we would end up with a kind of a balanced group of people to interview, say 5 women, 5 men. Then you interview people, and you have to follow the law here, and you pick the best candidate. The best candidate may be a man, the best candidate may be a woman. And we managed to increase the percentage of our female hires. I don't have the exact number, but it was, so I think we were able to have a real impact there. And later in my career, I started doing a lot of public speaking at events, and I noticed that the representation of the speakers was very, how should we say this, pale, male and stale. So we wanted to bring a bit more balance to these events and make sure that we had a more balanced set of speakers from all aspects again, gender, race and so forth. So we started following the same approach. So when we were planning events, rather than realising at the end of the event we had a panel of 4 men and trying to add a woman, we would actively at the beginning come up with a balanced pipeline of people. You start off with a balanced pipeline, you end up with a more balanced result. And then furthermore, we realised that it wasn't just about the people speaking on the panels, it was about the attendees to the events. And we realised that by holding events either breakfast or in the evening, anyone who was a parent who had any childcare responsibilities couldn't come, and this disproportionately affected women. So we started moving events into late afternoon so that people could do them at the end of their workday, and we had an increase. But actually, when I spoke to people after the event, both men and women were saying, "Okay, Justin, great event. Sorry, I can't stay for the drink. I have to go and pick up my kids." So actually, making this little change meant we didn't exclude parents, which of course disproportionately was excluding women. I think again we want to make sure that we're fair here. This isn't about positive affirmative action. We want to make sure it's a meritocracy, but really we want to remove barriers where they exist and encourage people through a bit of role modelling to get to have a better result. And these panels we've put together with more diverse speakers have been better panels.
That is great. Well, thank you very much for joining us in the deep end.